And of course, the big story we're tracking this morning on this budget day is what Enoch Godongwana will have to say insofar as South Africa's energy crisis is concerned. In fact, Eskom CEO Andre de Ruyter saying that load shedding will be around for the foreseeable future. That's unless 4,000 to 6,000 megawatts of capacity is added to the national grid. So last month, the finance minister said that he wanted more power added to the grid, regardless of where it comes from. In underscoring the importance of energy security to economic growth, a lot is expected from today's midterm budget in terms of alleviating the rolling power cuts in the country. So Brian Kamanzi is an energy policy researcher at the Institute for Economic Justice. He joins us now via our video link for more on the energy budget. Brian, thanks very much indeed for your time this morning. I mean, is there anything that the minister can say today, given what Andre de Ruyter has said about load shedding being with us for the foreseeable future?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. There's plenty that he can say. What's most likely is that we will be expecting an increase in private mechanisms for increasing private generation into the grid, which has been in line with the current trends that have shifted the calls for Eskom to be unbundled and efforts made by Eskom to raise finance at COP26 to enable more private investment in private generation projects. What one would hope, though, is that we rebuild our energy system to focus on basic service delivery and to consider electricity as a public good, which would mean using public finance and leveraging public ownership to rebuild Eskom in a way that senses people's needs as opposed to profit motives. So unfortunately, it appears as though the load shedding crisis is an opportunity for multinational actors to secure profits in an economy that is slowing, that will be essentially backed by the state. You know, we will pay for this through higher electricity prices, and they will see unprecedented profits that are just not possible elsewhere in the South African economy. So a crisis for us is an opportunity for others.
So Brian, I mean, the Eskom executive, the chief executive, Andre de Ruyter, I mean, he didn't mince his words when he said the power utility is technically an insolvent business that is failing its customers. A cleaner, greener future in terms of our energy needs in the country is what is obviously needed to try and fix our energy crisis. How do we make that transition, and how does the finance minister help us do that?
Well, I think for me there are some harsh realities, right? And I've run some figures about the coming procurement rounds, bid window 5 and the risk mitigation round, the latter of which includes an amount of gas, but primarily wind and solar technologies will be used. And to be honest, even if those projects materialize tomorrow, with the decay of the current coal fleet, we would still have load shedding today. The fact is, we need a crisis management team. We need to release public finances to implement emergency maintenance on our existing fleet. It's non-negotiable. Additional capacity must come online. Of course, there are a variety of reasons why we want to green that sector. The just energy transition is very important. Labour has made very important demands in this respect. But a lot of questions still remain about who benefits. I think what we would want to hear from, or what would be very positive to hear coming from Treasury, is an interest in using public finance to invest in these industries, and that public finance becomes the main instrument through which we are developing this infrastructure. Because, you know, we must remember that when arguments are made that the fiscus is constrained and we have no money, that in fact the mechanisms that are being created through the unbundling of Eskom and through the privatization of the energy system is that you will be paying for these new generation projects through electricity price hikes, right? So we will be paying either way. So if we do not want to pay through increased hikes, the other option available to us is to recoup the cost of new capacity through taxes and through the fiscus, right? So I think for me the progressive option is fairly clear here, is that we need to leverage what the tools at our disposal. The state is one of the main tools at the disposal of the working class that can be leveraged for broad systemic change, and we need to use our public investment to secure public ownership of new generation technologies, which include renewables, which have many positive possible impacts.
So outside of the factors that you've just mentioned, there is the issue of maintenance of our existing fleet. So
Yes.
I heard some incredibly disturbing numbers around the number of existing generators we have and the ones that are actually working optimally. And the number is very, very few of them are actually working optimally. So when you do maintenance on these generators, they need to be taken offline for a certain amount of time, right? Can we finance more urgent maintenance for our generators that are not working as they should be?
I see no reason why we can't, but I think what we require is a bit more transparency from the leadership of Eskom. It may be that what's becoming clearer is that there is a leadership crisis within the utility, and if they're not up to the task, the country may need to consider applying pressure for change in leadership. It's possible that we're heading in that direction, but I think that the issue is that there are long-term maintenance questions, and then we need to assess what are the possibilities of short-term fixes, and so I think some of the long-term issues are going to be with us for a while. The fact of the matter, the hard reality remains that no matter what technology type we use, the generation capacity that we have will be constrained for the foreseeable future. So De Ruyter is correct in being fairly honest with South Africans that load shedding will be with us for a while. The capacity that we have is severely constrained, and if there are any unplanned events, which appears to be quite likely with the decaying fleet, then we will have load shedding. It's as simple as that. There's a mismatch between supply and demand. So I think that what we need to get a clear sense of is is the current leadership, do they feel that they are capable in squeezing the best possible benefit from the fleet that we do have before new generation comes online? If the answer is no, then we need a crisis management team. But what is clear is that we do need to release finances to expedite the process of maintenance.
I just wonder how much of the solution to our energy crisis rests on releasing more finances. If we look at the kind of money that's been thrown at Eskom over the past years, an annual budget of 23 billion, that's in the form of a bailout being handed over to Eskom over a decade from 2019. And still, we're sitting with the issue of rolling power cuts.
Yes, it's of course a dual issue, right? And I think that there are issues that are also tied to this, that there is a flawed mechanism of financing electricity, right? And we also find that electricity prices are going up for consumers, and yet we're having more unreliable supply. And Eskom is also facing declining sales. So there are harsh realities here. Of course, throwing money at the problem alone is not going to solve the problem, but it's clear that targeted finances need to go towards maintenance. It appears clear from De Ruyter's recent comments to the media that maintenance has not been a priority and that they have difficulty releasing funds for maintenance from Treasury. That's the statement that's coming from his last press statement with Pravin Gordhan. So those funds must be released, but then we need a clear sense of what is there a technical skills shortage? Is there a leadership? Is it a leadership issue? Is there a political issue? Those things need to be tackled in tandem. But not all of the finance a lot of the finance that has been released has been servicing the debt from Eskom, opening up new avenues for private procurement for IPPs. So it's not clear whether maintenance has been a high priority for this regime.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, let me thank you for your time this morning. Thanks very much for coming on. Brian Kamanzi is an energy policy researcher at the Institute for Economic Justice. And, of course, the energy crisis in our country will be high up on the agenda for the Finance Minister today.